got a ticket back from Avalara, and they said the database from the state is wrong. We're under collecting by like 2%. And you know what? We're not liable. Now the customer's complaining, why are you not charging me enough? And we're trying to figure out why there's a difference. But Arkansas cannot assess us the tax because their database is wrong.
Well, and I think that's a good segue to kind of talk about, streamlined sales tax, how it could help, but also then like what being an SST service provider is, because that does kind of, Judy, to your point, when you say, they're not handling your audits and whatnot, like this kind of makes them responsible for all of that. Right, in a weird way. You're the one conducting business, but they're the one like taking over all of that. So Diane, can you talk to us a little bit about kind of just streamline?
So Streamlined Sales Tax, SST, is a quasi-governmental unit. So it is a not-for-profit. It's not a government agency. That is, I call it a quasi-governmental unit. It's been around since March of 2000 and really kind of came out of the Federal Commission on Electronic Commerce, and really after the Quill decision came down back in 1992, that the court basically said, states, your systems are too hard. We're not going to authorize states to be able to force collection on out-of-state sellers until you make your laws easier and more transparent. And that is what kind of was the birth of Streamlined. And, their purpose is really to simplify and modernize sales and use tax administration to substantially reduce the burden of tax compliance. And so when you look at the Streamlined Sales Tax organization, they are governed by a governing board that is the 23 full member states, one associate member state, Tennessee, that wrote basically a body of law that all of the states must agree to comply with. And they all had to do different things to modify their own state law in order to meet the criteria that is required to be in the law per the Streamlined Sales and Use Tax Agreement. And so when we look at that agreement, what do we see? We see things like a standard definition of things like sales price. What does sales price mean? Now, there's areas where we have what are called toggles. So things like installation and delivery. States can toggle that on and off. So some states have it toggled on, that it's included in sales price. Some have it toggled off. But then there are definitional terms that if the state wants to provide an exemption, they must have the exact definition per the agreement. Clothing, food, dietary supplements, feminine hygiene products, software, digital goods. There's all of these definitions that now, if I go look at the Streamlined Sales Tax Agreement and I look up that definition, I know that that is going to be the definition in the 23 full member states. So there's that makes it consistent. There's administrative things like every streamlined member state in a drop shipment scenario has to accept a certificate if the seller is not registered in the state of delivery. So if I am a drop shipper and I am going to my supplier and asking them to ship into a state where I'm not registered, and one of those states is a streamlined state, and I'm registered somewhere else. I'm registered in Illinois. I'm not registered in Kansas. I want to have something shipped to Kansas. I can give them my Illinois number. I have to say, apply this to Kansas. So I have to put it on the Kansas line on the form, but I don't have to be registered in Kansas in order to do that. That's a requirement to be a full member state. There are simplifications with information that they put out there. Every streamlined member state must publish their sales tax rate table. They must publish their boundary database. And if a seller relies on that, they cannot be held liable for doing it wrong. We just came across a situation with one of our clients that's selling to an address in Arkansas. She happens to be an Arkansas business, and the address that she has is a PO box, and it is not including the city tax. And we go and we look it up, and on the state website it includes it. On the we were looking it up in a they happen to use Avalara. Look it up on the Avalara free page where you can go and do a rate lookup. It does it right there, but when we're within their configuration within the Avalara application, it's wrong. It doesn't
Yeah.
have the city. And we were like, this is bizarre. This doesn't make sense. But they're configured that they're using Streamlined, and there's some rules what has to happen if you're using one of the certified service providers. Got a ticket back from Avalara, and they said the database from the state is wrong. We're under collecting by like 2%. And you know what? We're not liable. Now the customer's complaining, why are you not charging me enough? And we're trying to figure out why there's a difference. But Arkansas cannot assess us the tax because their database is wrong. And
Right.
that is huge, that if the state publishes wrong information, that
Hmm.
usually doesn't protect the seller at all. And in this situation, it does. And so,
Because of the CSP.
well,
I mean, not the
well,
CSP, it's the
because
SST,
because of
member state of
SST,
SST.
right?
Yeah.
So you could go and look at the state database that's published on Streamlined, and if you use that, you're protected. So there's a lot of real benefits that have come out of Streamlined, and they really help make it easier. So product mapping, what it is. It's the same
Yeah.
definition there. The taxability rules, disclose practices, and taxability matrices. Every defined term in Streamlined has to be included in the taxability matrix that the states have to publish, that tell me the taxability of these things. And then they have things called disclosed practices, which is not necessarily a defined term, but it's information that sometimes isn't easy to find within the
Hmm.
state rules, like the
Yeah.
drop shipment rules, like
Hmm.
all of the nexus rules, the economic nexus rules. I was very involved in a disclosed practice on that, asking questions like, does a seller have to be registered with the Secretary of State in order to get a sales tax license? That is
Hmm.
something that is confusing to everybody. And
Hmm.
even some of the streamlined states, if you go into their online portal and try to register them, state of Kentucky, it's a required field. You can't get past it. But you know what?
Hmm.
Kentucky doesn't require it. They just have the
Yeah.
system programmed inappropriately.
Yes.
So all of that is published information that, again, a taxpayer, if they rely on that, have liability protection.
Yep.
And then this certified service provider. This was a key component that played into the Supreme Court making the decision that they did in the Wayfair case. And that is the states, if a seller is not, keep in mind, this is all pre Wayfair when all this was built into the agreement. So this was, how do we get sellers that don't have nexus in the state to start collecting? And so it is voluntary. It was voluntary at the time. They said, we have to make it free. So we have to
Hmm.
remove as much of the burden as we can. So Streamlined created this concept called a certified service provider, of which there are currently 5 providers. And they have agreed to have their system vetted by the state. So all 24 member states look at how those systems calculate the tax, how they do the math, how they do the boundaries, how they maintain the taxability rules. What are the taxability rules that are maintained within there? Not just for the defined terms, but often for the biggest bulk of their database. And they certify those regularly. There are states that get test decks from the states every single quarter and run everything through, and the states are checking that every single quarter. They have to do it at a minimum once a year, but there's states that do it every quarter. And they have to provide for free the implementation of their solution to the seller's engine. If they are a qualified seller, and I'll come back to that, they have to do the tax calculation and they have to file their tax returns at no charge. And basically, a qualified seller is intended to be somebody that doesn't have physical nexus in the state. You
Hmm.
can qualify if you have economic nexus. If you have a minimal physical nexus, you can have less than 50,000 of property and payroll in the state, spend less than 30 days in the state. So if you have those things, you're going to get all of that for free. So when the Wayfair decision was being evaluated, that was something the court really keyed on is
Mhm.
South Dakota's participation in Streamlined, the fact that South Dakota had a fairly simplistic tax code, but then also the fact that the technology solution was there that allows them to do this for free. And so that's really kind of in a nutshell what is Streamlined all about. There's tons of resources out there. I talk about it a lot, and a lot of different ways that you can go do that. But basically, what the CSP then is they step into the shoes of the seller and they
Right.
become the agent of the seller to do those functions. And they do actually, if you are using them as it's now called a compensated seller. It used to be called a voluntary seller. But if you're one of those that gets it for free, you also don't have to handle the audit. The state
Right.
audits the CSP. The only exception is if you're remitting consumer's use tax, that's on you. And if you use exemption certificates, they will come to you if there's an issue with the exemption certificates. But otherwise, all of the tax calculation for that state is handled by the CSP.
So, you mentioned that there's only 5 CSPs right now. Why would you know, why do you think some software vendors have opted out of trying to be a CSP?
So there are 2 more that we know of that are in the process of getting certified. And there's one that came on 2 or 3 years ago. So it had been pretty stable, that there was 4 of them. But now we're seeing more come in. So why would a company not? And I've talked to some of the providers that are not. Why do you not want to? Part of it is pricing and how they get paid.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and that I think is probably one of the biggest. And then it is a commitment from that vendor to participate in these meetings, to be there, to provide input. But then they also have to make changes to their system and they have to
Mhm.
meet these different state requirements. They have to let the states audit their systems and make sure they're doing it right. And so I think that's a lot of what goes into it. Some of the smaller ones don't have the technology and they're not going to pass those tests by the states. But I think some of these smaller ones that have, and there's been others that have applied and we never get told their names because they don't pass the initial. Like there's actually viability of business tests that are the first things that have to happen. So the company has to be established enough that they've got the blessing, in essence, of the states that you're not going to
Right.
go out of business holding all of this money that you've collected. Um,
Okay.
so that's one of the first tests that goes through. Then it goes into, do they have the technology capabilities, and then they look at the content. So it's kind of a phased as to how far do you get in that process. And so I think some of the smaller upstart ones that are going through that process, they see it as a way to beef up their functionality. Like
Mhm.
instead of me going out and getting customers pissed off and in trouble and potentially suing me because I'm doing it wrong, well, maybe if I have the state bless it, then I know, and if the state gives them input, they can build their systems a little bit better. It also is built-in marketing. I mean, every CSP
Mhm.
Yeah.
is listed on the Streamlined page. It's a great way if you're a startup or far enough along in your startup journey that you can get those recommendations. I mean,
Yeah.
we do a lot with Streamlined, and we believe it is a real benefit to taxpayers if they're in the right fact scenario.
Right. I was
And
gonna say the right fact scenario is exactly right.
and
Yeah.
and we don't have many to pick from, and
Mm-mm.
so having more there gives us more possibilities to help our clients pick the right solution, which is our number one priority.
Yep. Yep. Well, it's interesting too how some of the big ones like Vertex never wants to be a CSP, and I think that has more to do with they don't want they're not going to handle the audits for their clients. Their clients don't want anyone handling their audits with them, and they don't really want all that data being disseminated in the way that it might
Mhm.
if they did as it be. So I think it was a little bit of a privacy thing, and
Mhm.
also just managing your own issues,
Right.
right? So giving up control, and it's a huge responsibility to
Mhm.
collect and remit sales tax as a business, whether you outsource this, co-source it, or whatever you do.
Mhm.
It's a huge liability
Mhm.
that doesn't make anyone any money.
Right.
It's just money that goes to the governments, and it costs you a lot of money to do so. So that's my understanding when I talk to some of those vendors. But
Mhm.
I just saw this name Avior. I just Googled
Mhm.
who are the ones that are CSPs, and I've never even heard of this one. Avior,
Yeah.
Avior.
There.
Like you were saying, there's just so many out there every day.
Mhm.
I think that's the biggest thing for us. And obviously having you
Mhm.
here is just how much people don't know how to buy the technology, and they kind of take the like someone was mentioning numeral, and I think they're pretty new on the market. They haven't
Mhm.
been around long time. I don't really know the history of what they exist, but they sent a flyer to my house. I don't know how they got a mailing list to know where I live, and then I got this flyer. So they've multi-flyering everywhere, but
I
I mean that's good
I used to
marketing.
have one on my desk, so
I mean, I had it somewhere because I brought it to the automation. I
yeah.
was going to bring it when we went to New Orleans and talked, but I thought, wow. I mean, and I remember when Avalera was on NPR,
Yeah.
and I'm like, wow, that is some brand recognition. And
Mhm.
being here all these years, I can't tell you people don't even know the name Vertex or
Yeah.
Thompson Reuters or
Yeah.
so. I mean, nobody knows these other brands
Mhm.
that have been around even longer than these new
Mhm.
upstarts, and then these upstarts are coming in and they may have a great concept, but they are marketing the heck out of it. So it's really is confusing to the taxpayer, and they want to believe the hype on the brochure.
Right.
We'll take care of it, right?
Well, and they're all, I was on a scoping call for a client earlier this week with a vendor, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm former this company. I'm former this company." So they all just kind of,
Oh
you
yeah,
know,
right.
take what they learn here and plop it over here, and here's all the bad stuff that, was happening over here. And we're not bad anymore because we, left this company and now we're going to be over here. And so they're all just kind of trading places with each other in terms of where they're going to kind of build out this next, you know, solution.
But they're not
I'm
us-
not all sure
they're not
they're
usually
not.
the founders. The
Right.
Oh
founders
yeah,
are more often serial entrepreneurs that have had to deal with sales tax, and they're like, there's got to be a better way to do this.
Mhm.
They know
yes,
nothing
yes,
about sales tax at all. They just know
Mhm.
it was a cost and a pain for their company as an entrepreneur.
yep,
They are tech people.
yep,
Like Sabrix was started by the IT department of a company that couldn't find a tax engine that met their needs. So they built it internally. And
really,
I'm forgetting the name of the company that they were with. It was a big company, and they were going through some downsizing. And so these three guys went to them and said, downsize us and give us the IP of the tax engine that we built. And they took that, and that is what became Sabrix.
it was
And
called
that's
Tektronix
it.
was the name of the company. I just Googled it.
Yeah.
Tektronix, 2000. That's when they
Yep.
started it.
Yep.
So oh, it's not fun. That's how TTRUS started. The guys did it for AT&T. I mean, it was privately content. It became IP'd.
Mhm.
Now we sell it to lots of people because we
Right.
already created it. It's good. Then we'll maintain it, and now we'll IP it. That's so fun.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there's the
Okay.
technology. So when it's an IT, Avalera, the original founders of Avalera had no knowledge of tax, but they said
Mm-mm.
this is something
Except one, I
that
think,
needed.
Rory.
Yeah, that's true. One,
He left, but he was a sales
he
tax
was the
guy.
sales tax guy, yeah. But it's usually the brainchild of somebody that's not tax. They start it, and and in today's AI world, these new startups are happening faster and faster, and they're just using AI. Tell me what I need to do sales tax, and they're not bringing in tax people early enough in their creation journey. Postcard that Numeral sent to people's homes. It's like it also reinforces that there's no sense trying to protect your private information, right, Judy? I mean, if our home addresses are easily findable.
Thought it's either they sent it specifically to me because this is where I practice, or they are just sending to everyone.
No,
Whatever.
no,
I
A
I
little
think
bit
suspect
it,
we're on a
a little bit
database
of column
somewhere.
B, no one knows.
Yes.
Well, it's funny. I was just looking up Scott McFarlane from Avalara, the co-founder. He launched a life cycle, a computerized exercise bike, which has nothing to do with sales
Right.
tax, and another one called Metal Info. So he's built other businesses that are
Right.
B2B, B2C, but not software
Right.
really in the same space.
Mm.
So yeah, so it's like they know how to get that done, but the SME is where I
Yeah.
constantly feel like we're juggling between SME. And I'm sure if someone who was an SME, they'd be like, well, you can't do this, you got to do this. And software's like, well, you have to create something so we can start somewhere,
Right.
right? And then they're evolving and growing. I mean, we look at Avalara. I remember years ago, we had a client that sold digital pictures. We couldn't map to Avalara. They didn't have the content and they didn't have Colorado home rules. I'm
Yeah.
like, well, I can't recommend them. We should go to Vertex. As we did. This is many years ago,
Mhm.
but no digital content. So they were not ready for that industry nor for the home rules of Colorado. And it took them a while to catch up
Well,
to that functionality.
and keep in mind, they were one of the first CSPs.
Oh, yeah, right.
Digital was not defined products initially with
Mm-hmm.
CSPs. It came very quickly, but clothing was. And so, yes,
Yeah.
a jockstrap was in there and a swimming suit was in there, and a tuxedo, because those were things that were defined under the streamlined agreement. But
Well,
as
I
they
think,
grew, and
yeah,
truthfully, as the world changed, digital goods became
yeah.
much more prevalent. Think back to 2000. How prevalent was it that you were buying a digital good?
No, I mean, I never bought online
Yeah,
until I did. You know what I mean? Like, you didn't buy online. You didn't.
you had a
No, you
catalog.
went to the store, you picked it
I
up.
went I
And you're
bought
like, why would I go to the store and pick it up? I will put it in my cart and I'll have it delivered to my door today.
Yeah,
I bought a bunch of DVDs through Amazon and had them shipped to my dorm. That's about the extent of, because I
yeah,
had a tower next to my big old tube TV in my
yeah,
dorm.
See?
yeah.
Um,
Yeah. But let's just pivot a little bit on Streamline because the problem with that is you've got 24 states. We have 45 plus DCs, not a state, 46 states plus Guam plus Puerto Rico, not even in those numbers. They are not part of Streamline. So we have the largest population of America, which is California, Florida, Illinois, New York,
Texas.
Texas, five biggest states. Absolutely not are they participating in Streamline. So they have totally different rules than the other ones. And I think Streamline represents less than 50% of the US population. So it's
They
not
do.
even a material part. So they're like 1 million people live in South Dakota. You can get a little more conformity there than you can with 30 million humans in California. So I think that the density makes it more difficult. And where's your business in the big states where a lot of people live, right?
But
So,
but here's where streamlined has had influence out of
okay.
the streamlined states. We see this in Massachusetts, we see it in
Right.
Illinois, we've seen it in California. They are adopting the same definitions
Yeah,
of
that's a good
things.
start, right?
Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
that is a start. And
Uh-huh.
streamlined is now trying to work and saying, you know what? You don't have to be 100% streamlined. Let's start
Yeah.
with little things. And so we've actually got targeted things identified. If
Okay.
you want to adopt something, you're going to adopt. So, particularly, estates are going and adopting tax on digital. We've got definitions of what is digital audio visual, what is a digital book, what is a digital audio product, what is specified digital products. Let's give them some of these things. Let's get
Yes.
them. Before Streamlined, you couldn't find a rate database on any state.
No.
Now I
No.
think
Yeah.
everyone has
You
a
can look
rate
stuff up. Yeah.
database that you can download for
Hmm.
free. That's thanks in big part to Streamline saying this
Yeah.
this is a base thing that states should provide.
Provide.
So
Absolutely.
although
100%.
we don't have other full member states,
Hmm.
Streamlined has influenced what the
That's good.
non-member states are doing.
Yeah. So that's good. I
And
mean, that's a
so
good,
it's
that's
better
what we
than
wish.
nothing. It's better than
Agreed. Agreed. And I know like Colorado's been an observer.
nothing.
We have lots of home rule stuff. So there's a lot of political stuff there, but it's not good for business. We have a law in Colorado that says a matter of statewide concern.
Mhm.
If you can't tell me sales tax is not a matter of statewide concern, I don't know what is, right? So I do think we could usurp home rules authority. We just politically have chosen not to. But there's a way to work together, to me, so everybody gets their money. People should get their money. That's what the tax it should be where it needs to go. But we are just struggling with that parity amongst the states. So I'm glad it's good to hear that influence has really been beneficial. And like I said, Colorado knows, observe, they listen, they're trying to learn and bring that back to the Department of Revenue and the city governments to let them know, like, this is what other people are doing. Why aren't we doing it? One little comment, I was in Michigan a couple of years ago and I looked up their sales tax because, of course, That's what I do.
100%.
And I'm like, do you know they have not changed their sales tax since 1996?
Yeah.
It's been the same rate for 30 years. I'm like,
Well, but Judy, look at Colorado. Look at SUTS. SUTS is
yeah.
6% happening in
Yep.
Louisiana. Little bit by little bit, they're adopting streamlined definitions. They're saying we have to
Uh-huh.
have central administration. All of that is 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 modeled. I think
Hmm.
Wayfair is the big, you have to make this easier. But I think
Yes.
those states, even Arizona, getting rid of their home rule filing that
Oh my God, right?
go
Best thing ever.
that
I
was
use it all
because
the
of
time.
Streamlined. Arizona
Really?
was very close to becoming a full member state, and they were taking all of those steps to get there. They couldn't get it all the way over the line, but Christy Caminita, who I think you guys have had on before, she
Mm,
was with Arizona, then she was for years with Streamline, just went back to Arizona 2 years
okay.
ago now. And so she is trying to get them back towards that path. I don't know that
Okay.
it'll
Love it.
happen, but there are these other states that look to streamlined
Yep.
when they're
So it's
looking to
good.
make those changes.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that it's having such a positive influence. I mean, I feel like that's a voice we need to be keeping speaking is like, do you understand that this is a tax? You need to make it easy on business. It's the only way this, you're going to get what you should be getting. So I always felt like the biggest vendors were taking the bulk of the responsibility because they're getting audited, they're filing everywhere because they had a physical nexus.
Mhm.
Now you have a lot more participants in the party. So we should be able to have more revenue spread around equitably where it should go.
Right.
But yeah.
So as we wrap up, Diane, what do you for crystal ball? And I saw um your April Fool's crystal ball of it depends. And I was like,
Our
man,
magic eight ball.
your magic 8 ball. And I was like, man, I really wish that was real and I had one. Um,
Hold
but
on.
so
Hold
um
on. It may be coming.
well, and if you sell a lot of them, you'll have to start charging sales tax on that little magic 8 ball. Um, where would you like what do you foresee maybe some of the problems that we might run into kind of related to the technology or the CSP or the streamline?
So I think a lot of what we've talked about, the base expansion to digital services, and the fact that um, the new creative business models, how we're doing things, the predictive markets, when crypto came in, when NFTs came in, it takes states too long to figure out what it is and how it should be
Hmm.
classified and then whether
Yep.
they want to tax it or not, right? So I
Yes.
think the fact that the way the world is changing and the fact that states just are too darn slow.
Can't change that
Yeah.
fast.
Can't change
Yep.
that fast, right? States are used to kind of looking at in the rearview mirror, particularly in sales tax and the audits. They're going back in history. And, state budgets are tight. So, telling states go hire more people so that you can be more proactive. But I think what you are seeing, like when I was in state government, we didn't participate in any of the, there wasn't anything like Streamlined or MTC that
Mhm.
had these meetings
Mhm.
that regular auditors came to, and we're hearing what are the up and coming things, what is new in the world, what are the technology changes that we need to have. So I think we really need to figure out how to do that because we've got states that need money, legislators that get a crazy harebrained idea like tax on digital advertising, right? And they
Yep.
don't understand what the implications are and why that's such a bad idea. And I also think the growth of those tax authorities, so these small communities need money. They can't get it from their higher level, a governmental body, whether that's a city, a county, or a state, or the federal government. So they have to figure out different ways to get things in. Retail delivery fees, battery fees, all of these other things are filling in all of that so that there is a way that the states can actually operate. And then I think the other thing that adds a lot of complexity is multi-channel selling.
Mm.
And so when we look at how many different ways people sell. Before you had your one sales channel, maybe you had salespeople going out and calling on your business customers, and maybe they could place orders a couple different ways. But now, you're selling on your website, you're selling through Salesforces, you're selling through independent contractors, you're selling on social media, you're selling through marketplaces. There's new things popping up all the time. And, companies just need every opportunity to get word out, particularly small businesses. I can sell on TikTok now. Oh, I can sell on Facebook. I can do this. I can do that. And they don't understand what those implications are. So I think all of those things together are going to really continue to give us jobs, right? Right? We're not going out of business. We're not
Right?
going
No.
out of business.
We are pandemic proof. We are recession proof. We are tech bomb
Technology
proof.
proof.
I mean, I thought, why don't we get a break during the pandemic? Like, we're working our booties off and I'm kind of depressed. So yeah, it was really an interesting time. But honestly, like you say, over this career, it's just because there's all something happening tomorrow that we didn't really expect.
Right.
So,
One, then we can finally figure out when to have you back for episode number 5.
Yes.
Figure out your
figure out the jacket or
5-year
something.
SNL equivalent jacket. So, Diane, thank you so much for your time today. As always, your friendship, your presence, your advocacy for us as practitioners and for our clients with governments. So we just really appreciate you and all that you're doing. And, all also that the Sales Tax Institute is putting out there from an educational perspective. So we love having you here, and thank you again for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me, and thank you for your friendship over the years. It's been a long time we've known each other.
And that's been kind of the guise of the SALTovation podcast. It's just about building relationships and community. And like you said, there's plenty of work out here for all of us. And at the end of the day, the people who care about the people that you do the work with and the people who do your work for, we really just want to get the best answer for our clients. And if that means supporting you to give the best answer to your client, we're going to pick up the phone, and vice versa. And so that's just all that this is about. And, it's, that's it. That's at the end of the
Close-knit
day.
of people, really,
Yes,
truly.
it is.
It's fun.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me again. This was great fun.
Yay!
Sorry, sometimes I get a little passionate about it, but
I love
Never
it.
apologize for
That's why we
passion.
want to talk to you, because we are passionate about too. So we get it.
And that's another episode of SALTovation. Till next time.